Welcome, everyone, to the L7C podcast, My Hero Academia edition. Today, we are back with another My Hero Academia Class 1A, Class 1B, mixed matched what if tag team match. So we have the My Hero enthusiast with us, Andrea Alanese. How are you doing today, ma'am?
I'm good. How are you?
I am doing well. We are back again with another My Hero Academia fight. So, Andrea, what are the teams this time?
So the teams this time are a Class 1B little duo and then a Class 1A plus Class 1B duo. So for the Class 1A, 1B, we have Miss Kendo, aka Battle Fist, and Uraraka, aka Uravity, versus Mines. His name escapes me at times. It's Shoda, Nirengeki, I think. Mines, and his partner also in Class 1B is Miss Ibara, Miss Vines. So the chick with the vine hair. So we got 3 girls and 1 boy in this matchup, which is a little bit of a change from what we've had in our previous, draws, even the hypothetical ones that we had to dismiss a little bit for being a little too one-sided.
Right. So with this one, we have a very interesting team, like the girls wise, with Battle Fist and Uraraka. That is when you look at that team just individually, first, Battle Fist, what do you think of her as a character and her abilities and so forth?
So as a character, I love her character. She is a little bit of the mom of 1B. She keeps Monoma in line. Love that. She's super intelligent, very down to earth, so I really appreciate that. I'm not super imaginative, unfortunately. So like when I understood what her quirk was with the big fist, in my head I'm like, okay, like how far can we push this? Like what are it can be very not to be punny, but be very handy. But I'm just like, okay, how much further can we like expand this? Are they going to try to make it so that like it's not just her hands that expand, that she does exercises so that like her arms and she could do different parts of her body? Shout out to Choji from Naruto, kind of like partial body expansion. But probably not. So like one-on-one fights, I think she's got it. She does hand to hand, and I feel like I'm doing a lot of unintentional hand jokes. So my bad, y'all. But we've seen her fight one-on-one. That's where she has the edge over Momo, which we've talked about in at least 2 different pods at this point. And I think it pairs really well with the fact that Uraraka also kind of had that, self-defense hand-to-hand training from Gunhead when she was doing her internship. So I think it's kind of nice that we have a female team put together randomly, and they're both pretty good at like hand-to-hand combat or close combat, because I feel like a lot of times female characters are more relegated to long distance, more supportive, not necessarily frontline combative roles. So I think she's an awesome character. I like her a lot. I don't see a lot of like future development with her big hands in a way that I feel like eventually with Uraraka, something I keep thinking about for her is obviously her quirk is like 0 gravity. She can make things float. She can make herself float. And what we saw during the tournament arc is when she had Hatsume's, jet propulsion boots. Like, so then she could fly. Like she made the whole team fly, not just float. So I really hope at some point they make that part of her actual like hero suit costume so she could have that ability, because flight is such a great advantage to have, which is, harks back to Hawks's tutelage for Tokoyami. It was like, hey, you have the shadow that's a bird, like why don't you try to fly? So I hope Uraraka eventually goes that direction, because as of right now, I feel like she's very stifled in that she can float, but she's going to have to force herself off of things to go in whatever direction she wants. So she can't fully fly.
Yeah. So with Kendo right now, you don't know how far her quirk can truly go. Obviously, if it's just like Battle Fist, or if she can like enhance other parts like her feet or something like that. But I mean, besides not really having any long range capabilities, she's a very actually well put together fighter. Obviously, with her hand to hand abilities, like her physical strength with Battle Fist. She's also very smart, which I don't think people realize. Obviously, if you watch the Class 1A, Class 1B season stuff, she was able to identify her team's strengths, weaknesses, was able to plan against Momo's team right when the team was announced. So, like, she was the one who had the plan to beat that team. She was the brains. She was literally the brains and brawn of the operation, which...
That is very true, yeah.
Which you don't get a lot of in not just My Hero, but more anime in general, that like a woman character is literally the brains of the operation and the strongest one at the same time on the team.
Right.
You don't get that too often.
You're going to hate me for this, but my first thought when you said that, like brain and brawn, was I thought of Sakura from Naruto, because technically speaking, she is super intelligent, but she's always behind the other two. So we never get to see her actually be the brains of the operation. But technically speaking, she has both. So she would be an example of brain and brawn. Tsunade as well. But I'm not thinking. I'm not thinking of any other characters off rip, unless you can think of any.
I mean, there's other people, but I also mean like on the strongest and smartest on their team.
That's true.
Because both of them were the strongest and smartest. Well, the both combined were like that. Because like Sakura is strong and smart, but she's not from a battle sense smarter than Naruto or Sasuke, and she's not stronger than them.
Right.
Like Tsunade was stronger than like Orochimaru, but she wasn't like stronger than like Jiraiya Sage Mode, like things like that. So it's like, but yeah, those are characters like that. So like, I'm trying to think, like, you would probably have to think of one of the girls from Sailor Moon, but then it's like none of them, like Serena wasn't the smartest, but obviously she's
right. No. She's, I mean, part of her character is that she's ditzy and immature. So like, as she, the character progression, she does become more mature and kind of more accustomed to being in a fight situation. But she's not known as the intelligent one. The intelligent one of the group is Amy, Sailor Mercury.
Yeah.
So, and she's kind of portrayed as being rather, I won't say that she's weak, because she's definitely not, but they seem to portray her as being meek. So like, even though she is powerful, it's like, it almost like she self-holds back in a way, or tries to like downplay it to a level that it's not really like acknowledged that she's like super strong. The one who comes with the like real brawn, quote unquote, per their personality and judgment from others is Sailor Jupiter.
Yeah.
So yeah, like technically they all have brains and brawn, but it's not highlighted in the same way that like we're already discussing and Kendo gets to display.
Yeah, because I guess from a thing, like, also with those other people, because like with a Sakura and Tsunade, more of Sakura, like if she goes down, I mean, you still have Naruto and Sasuke.
Right.
And then if it's like the full Team 7, you have Naruto, Sasuke, and Kakashi to deal with. In this sense, if Kendo went down, that should have been Momo's plan. You take out Kendo, that team loses, because they do not function without her from a physical standpoint and a mental standpoint.
Right.
And it's also...
Well, at least as far as they were aware, because, I mean, Little Miss Mushroom Head came in with the KO out of nowhere. So technically, even if they had put Kendo down, if that was still their master plan, they wouldn't have seen that coming. So they still potentially could have lost.
Yeah, but when you take out the team's like heart, soul, and leader, then they get rattled.
That's true.
So like when season 3, when Eraserhead was talking about like, there's 2 people who move the needle for Class 1A, and it's Midoriya and Bakugo. Right. There's one person who moves the whole needle for Class 1B, and that's her.
True.
So you take her out, that puts everyone in a shock, puts everyone in a tailspin. They don't know what they're doing, because even like, because Momo's team, I mean, she was the smartest, but she wasn't even the strongest on her team. They had whatchamacallit?
Tokoyami.
Yeah, Tokoyami. Like her team was good.
Well, right, and Momo's another example of like a female character, fighting character that got one half of the pie but not both. And that's, again, I have harped on this, we have harped on this. Why has she not learned basic hand-to-hand combat? Like, she doesn't have to be physically like overpowered, like strength wise, but being able to hold her own defensively one-on-one, like, is a necessary skill. She's smart as hell.
I
Just
mean,
ah
I've said it on here too, like, because we bring that up and quote unquote so hard on us, because if she learns how to defend herself and get hand to hand like combat and all that stuff, like from a total package, she could be one of the greatest female anime characters of all time from any aspect anyone looks at it, like personality, skill, intelligence, looks. Like she could be she could probably go down as potentially the greatest, but that confidence and that's gotten better. But the hand to hand thing is just bad because anytime someone gets close and is shown in anime and she gets punched in the face, then
she done. And that's right.
And she's rich too. Like she is literally almost a perfect anime female character besides a glaring flaw.
Right. They couldn't give her everything.
Well, she's potentially going to have to someday because the other people might. Because Kendo's teammate Uraraka, which when we were talking, I had to pull up our top 10 since we have these ladies on there.
Mm-hmm.
We have our third strongest Uraraka on here. One of our top 3 Uraraka. Kendo's in the top 5. And then we obviously had Vine in the top 10. So we have 3 out of our top 10 in this fight.
Yep.
And you already brought up Uraraka, who she's going to go down. I mean, if the path is the way it's going, if there's no major changes, she'll be one of the strongest women at the end of the series, if not the strongest, if they just follow the anime.
The trajectory, the plotted path.
But what do you think for her that you've already brought up? Like, what other things would she need to improve on in this fight? Because these two should be able to work well together.
Oh, they would definitely work well together. I'm wondering just how they're going to both simultaneously stay away from both of, the other team's problematic quirks.
Mm-hmm.
As well as, since they do need to be close to finish the fight, both of them.
Yep.
Like, I don't know how they're going to both simultaneously stay away to defend themselves and get close enough to win the fight. And that's where I'm struggling. Refresh my memory, but I do believe at this point we have Uraraka with the bracelets, or wristlets, I guess you could call them, the little pink wristlets that have the wire inside. Mm-hmm. So we've seen her utilize it to catch a plane and get herself onto the plane. I would assume she would start using them not to the same level of agility as like Spider-Man, swinging from building to building, but it would give her, a way to direct where she needs to go. And if she can build her agility in doing so, would be great, because then she might not be able to keep up with like Bakugo and Midoriya, like essentially flying around everywhere. They're so fast, but she would be able to have much more maneuverability without having to actually learn how to fly or have heavy quirk enhancement. What's the term I'm looking for? Support items? Support
tools, support
thank
items.
You. Yes.
It's what the O-Girl makes. Like
Hatsune, yeah.
Hatsune.
Yeah, her little pretend love rival.
Her as she calls her babies when she makes the stuff.
Yeah. Yes. So without needing something like that, because Hatsume's design were boots, so having heavy shoes will slow you down. Mm-hmm. So having that wire instead, I think would help her. I also think she might eventually figure out how to use it to capture, because I think that's that team's potential way of winning the match is being able to, catch one or the both of them in those wires, or cables, I should say, not wires, cables, and like restrain them, lock them up. Because that's how I'm seeing they would have to win the fight, because I think now you would want to switch over to the other team to talk about their quirks as to why I feel like it's going to be hard for them to get close and actually win the fight.
Yeah, because then when you go to the other team, to the other lady in this, I mean, Vine's abilities are very deadly, obviously. Horny, yeah, thorny, and
Sorry,
all of
I
that.
came with the puns today.
It's
oh
all
my
right.
goodness.
So I mean, I just don't know how they would get to her too, because she could trap people, she can make shields, she could strike you from a distance. This is a girl. I mean, when you saw her in season 2 during the sports festival, she was no joke.
She was absolutely. She still is no joke. My only
is.
thing with her, like the only reason she rubs me the wrong way is like I feel like her level of righteous indignation is just a smidge too high for me. But like it is funny. It is a different personality trait to see in like a freshman in high school. But it works. She, I mean, technically has like a I don't know what it's called where it's just the band around the forehead because like the tiara goes like on top of your head. But she basically has like a little mini tiara of thorns going around her forehead. So like talk about religious symbolism over here. Anyway, um she's tough. The only reason that Ida beat her in the sports festival is because he's super fast and was able to get behind her. And that's the part where I struggle with them, like specifically for her, because it's like not that Kendo and Uraraka are slow by any means. Like I don't think they're like slower than molasses, like, but her vines react very quickly. So unless they're set up in a way or find that team first, I don't know how they're going to get behind her to like surprise her. And then we go over to Mr. Mines.
Mm-hmm.
And his quirk just all he's got to do is hit you one time. He doesn't even have to hit you. I think he just has to touch you. And then even that touch is going to be an amplified form of contact later on that he can activate whenever he wants.
Mm-hmm.
So that's why it's like you got to like physically stay away from him. And then Vine Girl, staying away from her isn't going to work all that great because her vines can go, I don't know the radius that they can extend to. I don't know how high they can reach up. But we haven't really seen like a capped limit. Like with Shoto's like ice wall, we've seen that it goes like, you know, several tens of stories high, but we don't see it like continue to grow upwards. I feel like her vines, if she wants them to keep continuing, they will. We have not seen, since it is like her hair, it reminds me of like your favorite little guy, what is his name? Grape Rush?
A Mineta?
Yeah, Mineta. Yes, that little boy. His quirk is attached to his hair. Like same thing. So like when he's reaching his limit, his scalp starts to bleed. That's what we saw in the training. So I would assume her vines would be something similar in that if they're reaching their length limit, we would start seeing like either irritation, damage, bleeding, something. But we've seen her vines go probably several kilometers out and up without seeing any sort of limitations come out. So like I feel like it would be extremely hard to sneak up on her and or get close to her.
Yeah, because her weaknesses are super people who are super fast, who can maneuver whatever, and people who are good at close range combat. Obviously, both of these people are good at close range combat. But this team of her and Mines is actually a really good team because of his effect that he can use his quirk on objects. So like you could feel the double impact on an object because I'm just rewatching it right now where he threw something at Mina and she got hit and then the double impact. So now I'm just getting the thing like if he's able to touch like vines and you're getting smacked by the vine and then you feel that
and
double
then double
impact,
smack by his phantom vine slap, like
which is always stronger than the first hit.
Yes, by multiple times. So it's not like it's no joke. And I feel like when I was initially when you initially read the names, I was like, okay, Kendo Uraraka kind of got this. And I thought about it more and I'm like, wow, Vines and Minds, little MV, are very balanced and they very much like protect each other. Whereas I feel like Uraraka and Kendo are very similar. So their, combat strengths, all of that stuff is more skewed to one side. So it's like, that's going to be very, very, very tough. And while I think it would be a good match, with Kendo being both of their classmates, actually, I think she's the class president, correct?
Yeah, she's everything in that group.
Yeah. Well, Mines is actually the vice president. I didn't know that. I read it in the wiki. I was like, oh, I did. Ooh, that is good to know. But Kendo would also know kind of their strengths and weaknesses going in. So I wonder if she would be able to strategize a plan around, that balanced team of Vines and Minds with her and Uraraka together. And Uraraka is also extremely strategically knowledgeable. She was like this close to beating Bakugo. Like he was internally sweating for a hot second during their match, and that floored everybody. So it's not like Kendo would be the only one to come up with the plan. I just feel like since Kendo, those are her classmates, she knows them better. She's seen them in training. She knows kind of where their weaknesses fall short. I wonder if Kendo would even try to nettle Vines' whole spirituality thing, kind of aggravate that like righteous indignation to distract somehow. But again, I'm not imaginative enough to figure out how Kendo and Uraraka would win. The way I see it playing out is probably being Vines and Minds being able to defend themselves long enough. And with Vines, I mean, her quirk has the built-in capability to restrain.
And also, Minds also has the ability to, with his quirk, that he can use it to jump higher or dash faster.
Yes, I forgot about that. Yes, I read that in his wiki as well. I was like, oh, dang. So then the person with the speed that we would need against Vines is her partner.
Yeah.
Yes.
I just don't think that he's durable enough that if he takes a couple shots from Kendo, then he's going to lose, which no problem with that. So it's one of those things like where I don't know, like because Uraraka and Kendo, it's a team that I would like to actually see in the real show,
right?
But it's like how their speed, because they got to get close. Like I feel like the goal is to like get Kendo close enough to do so that she can just start wailing, because that's another thing. Like, do you think Kendo's fists are stronger than Vine's shields?
See, okay, I don't think her fists are stronger than those shields. However, I think if Vine is off guard or Vine is flustered, Vine is whatever, or Vines, sorry if it's plural, might be able to get in a chop that would knock her out immediately. We see her do it all the time with Monma. One chop, boom, he's done. Yeah. So she knows how to do it. So I think all it would really take is one clean hit to put her down. And the issue is creating that opportunity for there to be a clean hit, because I don't think, if Vine has the proper, ability to either envelop herself in a Vine like sphere, or put up like the Vine wall that we've seen before. I don't think she might be able to hit it and like knock it over, kind of like, when you brush over a hedge, but it's not going to cut through, and it's not going to continue like with that same level of impact to like cause damage or harm.
So like the only way I just thought about them getting close, if they were fighting on like the same field, like abandoned city they were fighting in. I actually thought of a scene from Hunter x Hunter, actually, where Gon fought Hisoka for the first time using the boulders and all of that stuff to like get close to him, to then finally get a hit on him. I mean, you could do something where Kendo's picking up rubble and stuff, and Uraraka making it lightweight, so she's like zooming all of those, over there, so they have to block those, and then somehow she's riding on top of one, and that's how she gets close, and that's a lot of work. But I was
That is
thinking,
a lot of work, but also there's a level of the distance that they would have to do that at, because again, defensively, I feel like Vine would automatically, or I mean, Mines might advise this as well, because from what I understand, he's very strategically minded as well, that they would put down, you know, the vines spreading out and spreading up to kind of get a feel for where attacks are coming from, if they could find them first, because I automatically was picturing this fight happening in that like abandoned city, industrial factory kind of piping everywhere, buildings everywhere. So like you don't automatically physically see your opponents. It's kind of also a who finds who first. And in that sense, I feel like again, Vines has that potential advantage, but Uraraka again does float. So if she gets up high enough and stays out of sight, she can spot them first. But I don't. I think it's possible. I think it's possible. I'm not fully seeing it come together in a way that I feel confident saying that Uraraka and Kendo would be able to knock them both out, restrain them both, or knock one out, restrain the other. This one didn't have a time limit. Oh, it did have a time limit. Or they could just keep fighting until time ran out and it would be a draw. Technically, they could do that too. Not that they want to.
I think the only thing, I mean, you brought up her knowing everyone's stuff. That's going to be their key. Like that's their key. Like that's their key. She could probably be like, oh, Vine's max limit where it extends is
this amount, and I know she can do this, that, and the other. I know, like,
Mines can only be in a fight for like 15 minutes, and then he's super exhausted and like
right. But that's all knowledge that she has and that we don't have as an audience to even like try to imagine how it would come about. Because at the same time, the two of them would also have, you know, information on Kendo. Mm-hmm. Not that we see like any like super big vulnerabilities of hers, because she's a very balanced character. And that's why overall, as much as I flipped Momo over Kendo. And that could be a bias thing, because I had Momo as 5, Kendo as 6. You had Kendo as 5, and Momo as 6.
I had Kendo as 4.
Fair enough. Part of the reason we would have her over Momo is because she's more balanced overall. And so that's true. And at this exact moment, I'm not recalling my exact reasoning for why I put Momo ahead, which again might be a bias thing, because I personally like Momo better.
I mean, that's your favorite female character.
Exactly. So like that could have been, I'm trying to make everything like possible stick so I can justify why I did this, but I can't recall at this moment why I said that.
Well, if anyone else wants to recall why Andrea said that, you can always go back and listen to that podcast, because that was during the month of March for Women's History Month.
I was actually just about to say that, and I probably should listen to what the heck I said to myself so I can be able to keep consistent going forward until I have, you know, it proven to me in the show or otherwise at some point that my logic is
I know why. Because your logic was extremely flawed, because you weren't using like literally what you saw on TV. You were using the stats.
Oh, that's what it was. The stats. That's what it was. I went and looked up everybody's stats, like the intelligence stat, the strength, yes, that's right. Because I had a lot of funky answers.
Yeah.
For the stats. Yes. For the stats. That's right. Okay. But again, it was full disclosure, probably at least a little bias coming in there too, guys. Sorry. But I don't know, Martin, it would be a very good fight to watch. It really would. We also don't really see, 2v2 teams outside of, the first training for Class 1A. I think, wasn't that one of the last times? Oh, no, the midterm final exam.
Yeah, where they had to it was 2-on-1.
It was 2-on-1, but
against a teacher. You didn't have to beat the teacher. You just had to get to the finish line.
True. But we don't normally see, we haven't seen 2v2s, not really.
Oh no. So these are always interesting, and it's self like a 2-on-2 because usually they have big teams like 4 and 5 and
Right.
all of that. But I don't know. This is really tough because I feel like so if this was the show's writers, they would have Kendo and Uraraka win in somehow
Yes.
just because of
I mean,
Uraraka being the main female
exactly.
character. She loves Deku.
Exactly.
They can't have her lose. Like if this was in front of Midoriya, then she's like, I can't lose in front of blah blah blah.
Yeah, no. He cheers for her from the stands. She's like, oh yeah. Or he cheers for her and she gets embarrassed and she fucks it up. Just like during the final exam.
That is true too. So from like a show thing, they would just find a way. Or you can also talk yourself in a show way. They find a way for her to lose, like you just said, so that she doesn't get complacent and she keeps bettering herself. Obviously, here on this podcast, we don't have any of that. This is just from objective, like, no, you don't have the Midoriya's future wife tag on you. Like everyone's even in a story standpoint who wins. So I just don't know how they get close. Like if one of them was just demonstrated a little bit more speed, like especially if they're starting like this close to each other, then yeah. But if they're starting like far
from a distance,
I don't know how they do it.
I don't see. Yeah, me either. And this is also again circling all the way back to the beginning. It's like if either of them had more speed, like you said, but also if Uraraka could fly, I feel like that would be super helpful in this situation because at this point it would kind of be like a, hey guys, by the way, she flies. So like out of nowhere for everybody. So that could be the element of surprise needed to get behind Vines and take her out of the equation quickly.
We didn't even talk about, I didn't even ask you about Mines. Like, what do you think he could do to get better? Because I didn't even bring that up. Like,
oh, that's true. Sorry, dude. We totally neglected you. This has been a women only pod so far.
Everyone else had their usual. Can they do to get better? Like obviously with Vine just needs to get better hand to hand.
She and Momo can fucking throw hands. They could. The two of them can train together.
That would be that'd be good for both of them. They're very. Oh my gosh!
Similar. What if Vines could like? I don't know, maybe this is a different quirk entirely, but what if she could snap off one of her strands, like one of her vines strands, and turn it into a long staff? So then she would be a perfect mirror for Momo, and they could train with the long staff and hand to hand.
Probably could.
Anyway.
Probably could.
Anyway, so for Mines, like, I don't know, because, I mean, I feel like anybody's hand-to-hand could always be improved. Anybody's agility could be improved. I mean, he technically already has a semi-long range attack in that he can activate that second impact from a distance. He doesn't have to keep hitting you. He only has to hit you or touch the thing that's going to go by you once. So I don't, and again, this is where we run into my lack of imagination. So I'm not entirely sure. I feel like strength training for him would be really great because then, his initial attack already packs a wall up, and then, the second impact would be that much more intense. But I feel like that's just very basic. What do you have in mind?
I just had to make sure I checked Okay. So I think with him, I think he needs a utility belt. Like with a whole bunch of things that are already pre-touched, that when he throws, he'll have that cocky villain grab it. It's like, oh, you just threw a ninja star at me. This isn't going to do anything. Then you get that second impact. Like, I feel like he would benefit well from a utility belt because he already has the freaking scouter thing. Like, so get him a utility belt that he already has pre-weapon stuff, and then that'd be
make the weapons diversified. Yeah, for sure. That would be great. That would be awesome.
Because you want to talk about another person. You talk about Vine teaming up with Momo. Mines and Momo would be a very good team.
Yeah, because she could make fucking whatever. Whatever he needed and whatever, either of them could come up with. Because I'm looking at his stats on the wiki page right now. His wits are a 4 out of 6. So that's a B. So, I mean, he's intelligent. The only thing he's really like falling behind on is the speed. And again, anybody and everybody can work on agility and strength.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, they would be really good together. They would.
Yeah, if you just go off the stats, Mimes is actually he's a pretty good.
He's very well rounded. Legitimately, his only that's his only quote unquote C with a 3 out of 6 is speed. Everything else is either a B or an A. So like
the speed's probably just because of the way the authors drew him. Like he's not like the most like physically fit, like from looking at the picture in his
right,
uniform.
Because he is in his physical description on the wiki page, it even says that he's chubby, but like
average height, like nothing crazy.
Speed is something you can easily work on. You don't need a quirk to be fast. Like to be, exponentially fast, like Ida, absolutely that helps. But like, run, doing sprints, like just work on your agility. Like it's not that it's difficult to boost. I won't make it sound like it's not difficult because as a former tennis player who's always been slow, like I feel it, but possible to get quicker. It's much more difficult to like in the quirk world, like make your quirk not mutate, because that's not right, because then that makes it sound like a totally different quirk. But pushing your quirk past its limits, it's just like your speed. It's just like, building up your endurance. You just keep going on a consistent basis, keep pushing yourself to get better. And so they're already doing that with their quirks. Why aren't they also doing the normal basic strength training, agility training, hand-to-hand training for the people that only know long distance, that are only supports? Because if they're ever exposed, they're fucked. Like that logic to me just never makes sense.
When they get close range, I mean, when you're in that place, you only care about your powers, and people don't improve on anything else. But yeah, he'd be a good team with Momo, and so I thought like a utility belt, and like you've already said, so just having some gadgets ready, because you get hit by that double impact. And
I mean, he's already got the like low-key reference to Dragon Ball Z with his little guider. So we might as well give him a utility belt to shout out DC, since I mean Sero's kind of a shout out to Marvel with his tape kind of being a slight echo to Spider-Man. So, or tribute, I should say, not echo. Yeah, so let's just give him Batman's utility belt. Let's just make it a different color. So
I mean, also on his wrist, because I'm looking at his hero outfit, he could put something like that we're doing Spider-Man, he could shoot out stuff from his wrist. Like he can really like just put some weapons on his like suit in a way that it doesn't slow him down, so it's lightweight.
True. So wait a minute, is that thing on the back of? I'm looking at his appearance, the photos on his wiki, and he's got like the Dragon Ball the locator thing on the back of his wrist. Oh my god, I love it.
Yeah, it is a direct homage, and there's a reason too that. I mean, he was saved for the last fight because they fought Midoriya and Uraraka's team.
Yeah, they did. And he made it difficult. He really did.
Yeah, so it makes you think that if this team wasn't fighting the main character's team,
they might have pulled it out.
I think they beat everyone else's team but Bakugo's.
Well,
this team and now, which would have been more compelling, because they would have beat Shoto's team. They would have beat Momo's team. This team versus Sue's team. That would have been something. Because I actually do not know who would have won, because technically you have to do it in a way that both teams get Shinsho, because he was on both teams. Well, that would have been something.
At that point, you could actually also argue that you just take them both out. Like, take Shinsho out of the equation on both sides and see what happens.
Wouldn't they be... I would have to check, because wouldn't one person have one less, or because they have like an odd number, if I remember.
Well, right. So the team with Shinsho always had an extra person. Wasn't that right? So then like taking them off, it would make it 4-on-4 instead of 5-on-5.
Yeah.
Right?
It would be something crazy, because I know there was a number thing, but her team versus Sue's team, because obviously Sue's team was the first Class 1A team to win. This team lost the main character and the main heroine's team.
Sue's team is the one that beat Vine's team.
Yes, they were.
Yeah.
So that would be interesting. Which one of those teams would come out on top? But I feel like when this guy grows up, he's gonna be a pretty good hero. And just another thing, he just looks like they say he's a little chubby. He just looks like a normal guy.
He does, and that's why when I read the description, like, he's kind of chubby, and I'm like, he looks like a normal human being. Most 14-year-olds don't have a fucking ripped ass 6-pack. Like, no.
Yeah, in the anime world they do, but like, so when the one person is normal, it's not normal. So on a percentage out of 100, where are you going? Who wins?
Okay. So on a percentage, okay, with my lack of imagination, little asterisk, I think I would put the percentages at like 60% Minds and Vines, Uraraka and Kendo 40, without any sort of plot armor in the show. If this was actually happening in the show, that would totally be reversed because there would be a way. The writer would have some sort of way for Uraraka's team to come out on top. So only because it's in a totally separate hypothetical situation, I say it's probably Minds and Vines are gonna either they'd win or they're able to defend themselves long enough that it's a draw.
Yeah.
So they don't. Yeah.
Because Mimes, they lost on the Mina Mineta combo, right? They lost on like the acid, grapefruit, whatever, super.
And Uraraka before she had to go stop Deku from, going nuts.
Because I didn't know she left because she was fighting the girl who's dressed like a Pokemon trainer. And then
they were all together. It was that group of three and group of three is what happened. So
that's right. Still one of the craziest moments in that fight ever when the quirk was a blank, because when he started lighting up.
When Monoma, oh my god, I had called that. We are just calling back to different podcasts, but I think it was right before that episode, was it, that I was like, I'm nervous because if he steals all for one for all. Whoops, one for all. Whoops. His body would explode. And that was illustrated in Deku's mind's eye when he was like, oh my gosh, did Monoma get the quirk? Oh my god, his body parts are gonna explode off because his body's not.
Which I didn't like that. I didn't like that explanation because technically we don't see the dude in a short sleeve shirt or with his shirt off. So we don't know his physical body. But I do call BS on that because literally a previous movie you gave the quirk to a dude whose body, quote unquote, wasn't physically prepared for it. He's always has a shirt in a tank top, so you see that he's more defined. Because what if he was defined?
No. I thought it was more not necessarily about physical. Well, for Midoriya's case, it was physical strength because he didn't quote unquote have a quirk.
Oh so, no, yeah, and he wasn't working out.
His body wasn't used to having to, evolve with that, so it would have been a sudden shock. I feel like for Monoma and Bakugo, though, since they both have quirks, their bodies would be able to handle it easier. But I do think potentially, I think the explanation they gave as to why it didn't work for Monoma, just to completely bypass the whole that his body didn't get ripped apart or his body, did get ripped apart. The idea that the power source behind the quirk needing to come from, I forget the verbiage that they use, but essentially it was something that they turn into energy themselves. That's not necessarily outside of the quirk that he can't recreate. And so that's why it's a blank, just like Aries' quirk was a blank.
Yeah, it's just when Midoriya was getting concerned, that's when I was like, oh, you were getting concerned when you gave it to Bakugo. You were concerned that he could potentially blow up after this fight, but that's okay. That's the whole plot armor thing. I'm it's a concern now.
I guess that's fair. I kind of forgot that two heroes came, right? Two heroes?
Yeah, no, it
Yes.
was no, because Two
Oh,
Heroes.
Heroes Rising. Excuse
Yeah,
me.
Two
Two Heroes
Heroes
is
was
the
the
first
first
one. Yes,
movie.
yes, yes. Heroes Rising. Yes. I kind of forgot Heroes Rising came out, what, over a year before season 5?
Hmm.
Yeah. So I kind of forgot about that in the timeline situation. So yeah. Yeah,
And
that
it's
should have been a thought, but I guess Deku was desperate enough that it was like, all right, man, let's do this.
yeah, he didn't think about it there. He didn't think about it when he felt bad and he was going to give One for All to Lemillion after Lemillion sacrificed his stuff to save Aerie.
But Lemillion, again, I think it was kind of assumed that the physical training his body had been through, having that quirk his whole life, having trained his body to, masterfully use his quirk, I think that's kind of, it's thin ice, definitely. So the plot armor is there, but I feel like it's thin enough logic that I didn't really question it. But I'm also not in the habit of like overly questioning everything I watch. I just want to enjoy.
It's just bad plot because if you think about it too, like the originator of the first person to get the quirk was a skinny dude.
Right, and he was sick. Like that
And
was
he
the
was
other thing.
sick.
He was sickly. He didn't. I don't think they made it sound like he didn't take care of himself, but he was like ailing. Like he was
Oh
not
yeah.
a physically strong person, and he was like it was already stated that he was quirkless. So like
Yes.
being
All
sickly
Might
already
was
made him weaker than Deku. The only thing that might make him equal to Deku when he first got One for All was the fact that he's an adult. Even if he's a sick adult, I mean, maybe he'd be as strong as a weak 14-year-old, 13-year-old.
but he
Maybe.
survived enough long enough to pass it down and keep getting past it. All Might had no quirk. And they said also, like after I remember reading it, One for All is better when you have no quirk because you have nothing else getting in the way. Like
Right.
you could fully.
Right.
That's why you could fully focus on that. So like, there's a whole bunch of contradictions there.
I'm just gonna pretend it's not there and keep enjoying my life. That's my
That's
goal
fine
and life
because
motto currently.
when All Might got it, he wasn't like he was skinny too.
Was he? I thought he was already like
When he first
at
met his teacher, he wasn't like the All Might from the first movie.
no, I'm thinking like teenage All Might. Like when we see the flashbacks of when he's like shadowing his um master, he already looks like he's in good physical shape. Like more so than just being
Oh,
like
more so than Midoriya, yes, but he wasn't like the one you saw at the beginning of Two Heroes, like when he's in America or like
right. No. It's before that. Yeah,
yeah.
sure, before that. Because I'm thinking specifically of because I remember seeing a flashback of him in a school in like UA school uniform, and
Mhm.
he is smaller than the flashbacks of when he's in America. But he also made the comment to Midoriya about when he was trying to make Midoriya stronger to be a better vessel for One for All. That he didn't need to, that his body was like prepared for it somehow. Like he didn't have to
He was just
he
a
also didn't
brat.
have to do the same like visualization like techniques because that was what Midoriya was asking about. It's like, well, how did you handle all of this? Blah 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 blah. And he's like, oh well, I just did and that's when Midoriya came up with his first metaphor of like what was it, the egg in the microwave?
Mhm.
And then what was it after that? Was it the water glass? Was that it?
Yeah, because I remember the first thing came up when he punched Shoto in the stomach during the fight.
Yeah.
Was like compress like all that. But I also wanted to just make sure I looked up. You don't get much from UA All Might. You only get like the picture they show at the end of season four's credits that I am about to send to you. So percentage wise, see back to this fight. I have
Oh yeah.
so you had 60-40. I'm probably the same. 60-40 or like 55-45, something like that.
Yeah.
So then on
In favor
other
of who? Are we both on the same?
vibe, yeah.
Okay.
I think
Okay.
like if this was in the show, Uraraka's team would win somehow. It's just the way they would write it. But since this plot not included. So then on other news too, My Hero Academia's season 5 UVAs had to Crunchyroll this summer. So they will be on in August 1st. So that we'll be able to watch the UVAs on Crunchyroll. They've already come out or coming out in Japan. Like they've already, like they did a theater thing, but
right.
Obviously if you're not in Japan, you get to watch them on Crunchyroll August 1st. And there also is an expo that will be going on with My Hero. I think it's the Anime Expo or something of that nature, where they're going to show a full thing of like season 6. So you're going to get like an episode early. June.
I think it's the first episode. They said that they would show the first episode early. Yeah.
Yep. Which will somehow leak online if you want to watch it that way. I know me personally, I'll just wait for the good quality. Obviously, they had the last trailer for season 6 on June 19th, and that was crazy. Obviously, you see all the heroes, Class 1A, Class 1B, and it's evident some of our favorite characters, if you don't read the manga, just watch the anime, they're going to die. They're going to die in this war.
It's a war, man. Like, of course, okay, honestly,
you can't say of course, because out of the Naruto War 4, the only one of relevance was Neji.
I was about to say that. Oh, you beat me to it. I was about to say we've referenced Naruto in this My Hero pod more than I think we ever have in a My Hero pod. But yeah, because technically speaking, of the giant group of characters that we were all very attached to, only one of them dies in the 4th grade ninja. Only one.
And
I'm glad it was only one.
And he shouldn't have died. That's the other problem.
He shouldn't have. He really shouldn't have. I remember reading theories online that like the way the show was going or whatever is like Sasuke was definitely going to have to die. And I fully honestly believe that that might happen. But then obviously it didn't. Spoiler alert, I guess, if you've never watched Naruto. But yeah, it was a war. Like we know like thousands of people did die, but they were just all background, homogenous characters. It was nobody that we were attached to, knew their stories, that died. And like it's a war. Like that's unrealistic. Not that all anime has to be realistic, but again, we are approaching a war arc. People are gonna die.
My thing is
or they could bring back the quirk erasing bullets, and more people, if they don't die, are gonna lose their quirks.
Well, they should do that, but I'm a big fan of that. My thing is, My Hero, we've only had really one. People are ready for like people to die in this anime. That's another thing. Because they're not coming. Like once they die, they're not coming back.
Like, well, maybe that's why Mines is dressed like a Dragon Ball Z character. He's gonna find the Dragon Balls and bring them all back.
Oh, I don't think so. This isn't that one. Or they would have brought back
Night Eye.
But no, this is one where they're not coming back if they die. And obviously too, it's just like Naruto people, they're ninja, they're expected to die, like things of that. Like these are high school kids, like in school, literally, who was like, oh, because of something we've also talked about, the gap that All Might left when he retired. These kids have to be thrown into the front lines way before they're supposed to. Mm-hmm. And then you already had issues with when League of Villains invaded UA and parents didn't want their kids to go back to school. Can you imagine?
Let alone live there?
Yes.
Live there.
Yeah. So what's going to happen when one of these teachers, when Eraserhead's going to have to go out and tell Denki's parents that he died in a war? Like, what's going to happen to UA then?
Right.
Like real life, because they do add real life stuff to it. It's like, dude, if my kid's going to be in a war, I don't know if I want my kid going there.
Well, okay. It's funny. Okay. It's not funny. Strike that. It's not funny. When you first said that, like, these are high school kids, like, they're not expected to go to war. They're going into this too soon. Like, they're not expected to die. My ears perked up because all I could think about was Uvalde, all of the school shootings here in the United States. And I'm like, those kids are training to become heroes, a life or death profession.
Not necessarily.
And then here in the real world, we have normal kids that don't even know potentially what they want to do, and they get sniped.
You're right. Well, I was going to say, not necessarily on the life or death situation. You could have some heroes there who will never be in a fight. They could literally just be medics, support heroes, and like
That's true, but it's always a possibility. It's just like, being, a firefighter, being in the back or being an officer, an agent, like even if you do primary support, there's typically some portion or some sort of emergency where you get pushed out there. So it's, even though they would be doing support, and that's also why I hark on, as a support person, as a long distance person, you need to have the skills to defend yourself should the need arise. And I mean, even if the in training heroes, these kids do become more supportive background heroes, they're still being trained like they could be in these life or death situations. They're not, in separate classes based off of like, oh, you want to be, the lead hero, you want to be like a search and rescue person, so you don't want to fight, so we're not going to like make sure that you know how to fight. So there's no distinction. So they're being trained like they're all going to be in a situation like that.
Well, then I do have another question, which this will actually potentially could be another podcast episode since we're running on it on the time now. So you say that, but a lot, 90, what they say, 80% of the people have quirks on the world, and
right.
Most of them are not heroes. Most of them don't do anything. Right. So I guess this would be a question for next podcast. Should the people who don't want to be heroes, should they also get some sort of hero-ish fighting training at their schools? Because you don't have to go to UA. You can go to Blacklick Elementary and go through K through 12 and not bat an eye, and you just can't use your quirk in public. That's what I'm saying. Like, a lot of these people is like, you're like the hero school, they want to be heroes, but like, if you're not going to a hero school,
you're not, well, right, you're not supposed to be using it. You're not licensed to use your quirk in any capacity to really, honestly, they make it sound like you're not allowed to use your quirk in a capacity to even defend yourself.
And that's where the League of Villains and the Liberation Army's appeal comes in, because they're like, hey, we want you to use it for yourself. Because you're right, man, because if you just watch the third movie of My Hero, you're just sitting there working at a bank and all these heroes disappear to left from your city and you're not allowed to defend yourself or don't know how, you die. There's a reason there's a whole League of Villains. Like, they're publicized. Everyone knows they're around. So that's a question. Like, should normal people be trained in some way to use their quirk in self-defense? Because I would love to meet the first lawyer of the My Hero Academia world. Like, now we had like the businessman with the Liberation Army and all that crazy stuff, the hero agencies. I would like to see like the My Hero Academia's version of like Daredevil, like the lawyer of it. So like if someone gets in trouble, what happens in My Hero court?
Right. And would it be a normal court or would it be a higher court for heroes specifically? Because then we also get into, I think I mentioned again in a previous podcast, I might be wrong, but, going into like Disney Universe, The Incredibles, that, he is a hero. Of course, he's not licensed, and that's a whole different separate issue. But he, quote unquote, saves somebody, and then that person has physical damage, gets really hurt, medical bills, there's destruction of the city. And so like the heroes are no longer allowed to hero. So there's like, ooh, could that ever happen in My Hero at some point? Like,
I think it could. I think you can.
I think so too.
That's another topic too. I think it could, if it gets to a point where, because I mean, the world's already at unease because All Might's gone, and like in Vadaverse, he actually is doing his best. He has to raise his own army without alerting the world that he's raising an army. So that's always a tough thing. So it could possible. I mean, you could have a situation where not even just the Incredible thing, like you go back to the Marvel Cinematic Universe, where the United Heroes Council is like, yeah, this can't be tolerated anymore. People are acting out. We got to have our own Savanian Accords.
Sokovian Accords.
Sokovian Accords. So,
and then we have, what is it?
My
it
Hero
wouldn't be
Civil
Captain
War.
America Civil War. Who would it be? Would it be Captain Deku Civil War? It'd be Deku versus Bakugo or some shit, like always.
But I would say from a professional thing, it'd probably be Endeavor versus America's #1 hero. It'd be like if it's a world thing. But also, I'm the same person who like, this war wouldn't be a problem if the World Hero Association kept a trigger bomb in their back pocket, but
Yeah, let's not go nuclear. Like,
I'm
how
just
about we
saying.
don't do that?
I'm saying I brought it up in February, and I said
Yep.
if All for One
Yep.
came back, there's no one who could beat him right now.
Wow.
Well, so Andrew, what do you want to do for next month's podcast? We're getting, because next month will be August, which means we will actually get to watch the OVAs, and people think it's further away, but it's getting a lot closer. That the fall season is starting with animes. There is a lot of animes coming out in October. So this podcast is going to be extremely busy because you will be back on like the episode stuff with My Hero. Demon Slayer's back. I know Justin has talked about trying to get Demon Slayer on here.
Yes. Okay, I want to do Demon Slayer. The only reason we haven't started a Demon Slayer podcast, like between you and I, or I haven't suggested it yet, is because I felt like there wasn't enough content. Because when I first started doing this with you for My Hero, only season 1 was out. Now we have 2 seasons, so there's a little more content to talk about, and we are coming up on season 3 fairly soon. So like, I think it might be time. If Justin's in on it, I'm in on it, like for sure.
He wanted the podcast to start one, so that's on the list. There's just a lot of anime coming out in October. Demon, My Hero.
Do you know if anybody reads the Chainsaw Man? I keep hearing a lot of like hype about it. Ooh, when the Solo Leveling anime comes out, I'm gonna be all over that like white on rice. Like, oh my god.
That's the one that's super wholesome. And then probably the biggest thing is one of the big 3 coming back with Ichigo and Bleach coming back in October, and then you got like the wholesome anime like Spy Family season 2 coming back, which took the world.
That's coming back this fall, really?
October. That comes in October too. Yeah, October is going to be wild this year.
Look at you, your birth month popping off for you on your golden birthday.
Yeah, joy. But we'll see which it's going to be harder. It's just going to be harder to view everything with My Hero, with all the animes. Plus, football will be back, so that's going to be a very.
Oh, that's okay. I got the anime covered. You guys can worry about football. All I got to worry about are the Packers games. I have Patrick for that. It's fine.
Fair enough. So, what would you like to talk about next month? I
think it's actually your turn, dude. Like, I was the one that came up with the what ifs, and we've done 2 of them now. 2 or 3.
We've actually almost done 3.
We've done 3 because Nikki joined the first one, and then it was just us 2 these last 2. Yeah. So
we'll definitely review the OVAs because we'll be able to watch them by the time we record, and then let's talk about what would, like, we brought up the thing, like, what would happen if like the damages were too much. Also, I want to know who pays for the damages. That's another thing.
Well, right. I mean, it's assumed the way the Incredibles went, it's like the city pays for it, the state pays for it, potentially. I would assume on a, national scale, like there's damage all over the country. I would assume, especially since in My Hero world, the heroes are licensed through, I would assume, is like the federal government or the overall government, national government, I should say. That would have to be a national expense that they would have to shell out the money for. But that's also why, like, My Hero is one of the first kind of superhuman, superpowered mutant, whatever you want to call it, show where I feel like they're taking into consideration the damage that they could do. Like, in several of the training exercises, the teachers have harped, like, minimal damage to the surrounding structures, minimize the impact to your surroundings as much as possible, unless you're like, out in the open. Like, then they don't really like harp on that as much. Whereas I feel like, in Marvel, I'm not very familiar with DC, so I'll only talk about Marvel. Like, they dropped a whole city. Like, it wasn't their fault that the city was floating in the sky, but a whole city was destroyed. New York was decimated after, what were they called? Loki's little army people.
Chitauri.
Thank you. Yes. Like, when they attack New York, again, it's their fault for attacking New York. But New York City, New York State, would be covering the cost for repairs, and probably all of the insurance companies are shelling out for like the life insurance policies for the number of people that died. And then
Yeah, when you think of like superhero worlds and all that stuff, you forget about like when these things get destroyed, like the normal people, like the normal person who's like driving to work and then an alien falls on his car, and then you have to go tell State Farm like, "Hey, an alien fell on my car." And
hey,
then
like a good neighbor, you need to be here because an alien just like demolished my car. Yeah.
or they don't believe you. So maybe it'll be something about the real world complications. I'll figure it out in the next couple of weeks. Andrew, anything else you'd like to say?
No, if anybody is interested in our previous podcast, I definitely recommend listening to them because we have done more expansive things than just these what ifs. Those are recent, and as much fun as they've been, I'm excited to see what kind of topic Martin comes up with because he is the creative brain in this primarily two brain process. And I enjoy getting to do those kind of like think tank is a strong word, but kind of like deep diving into what ifs, the real world applications, if My Hero was, the reality that we lived in. So I'm excited to see the questions you come up with specifically. And I hope our listeners will go back and listen to some of the stuff we've dug into and, definitely comment, like, ask us questions, even if they are older. I would love to kind of like go back and engage with everybody.
Yeah, and to just think about too, because if I'm the one picking this one for August, this is actually,
I gotta look forward to September.
I don't even think you will, because in September we're probably going to be previewing season 6.
That's true.
Because it starts in October. Because
but we already did kind of like a blow by blow for season 5. So would we really need to recap season 5 before season 6?
Well, to preview what we want, season 6, what to expect, where we left off. Like,
that's true.
Especially so, like, it's already that time. Like, once August hits, it's like this might be the last one, depending on if we do 2 episodes of My Hero in September. Because once the shows start, because we were doing every 4 episodes.
Yeah, it was every 4 unless extenuating circumstances.
Yeah, so it's kind of crazy that we're going to be back in the full My Hero swing in like 2 months.
I am in love with that. I hadn't realized how close it was. Like, I know it's July, but at the same time, it doesn't feel like July. So I'm super excited for that because, again, you're the creative brain here. So I struggle, as we know, picking my topics. But I enjoy talking about My Hero. I'm very ready to see how season 6 plays out. I'm uber ready to see these OVAs. I just went to a baseball game, a semi-pro baseball game last night. And it kind of reinvigorated me into like, I really want to know how they're going to play that baseball game.
So the only thing I also have to say is 2 quick things. One, rest in peace to the former Japanese Prime Minister Shinzo Abe, who was shot dead in Japan. Obviously, a lot of our animes that we watch take place in Japan, so that is crazy in itself. Then obviously to another anime, Takahashi, the creator of Yu-Gi-Oh, he passed away this week. So it's been a pretty crazy week for Japan. And I wanted to throw this out last thing before we do go. And I didn't think about this until, obviously, when someone dies, you think about the impact and all that stuff. But Takahashi, someone had this tweet who got thousands of retweets, and I 100% agree. They said, if you like the kind, caring main characters of a Midoriya, a Tanjiro, Takahashi, Yugi Muto. So when that tweet came out,
about that. That's so true.
You don't think about that. Yugi was actually the first of that era to be not
like a holy, like a soft, I don't want to say soft-hearted, but like compassionate, not aggressive or sarcastic or hardened in a way. Because like, as much as we love the other main characters before Yugi Muto came along, and they do have their soft aspects, I don't feel like they were as wholly selfless in the way that Yugi, Tanjiro, and Midoriya are. And I had never considered that. That is so true.
Yeah, and I was trying to find the exact thing because I didn't want to mince the words because there was other characters that the tweet mentioned, but yeah, I mean, he was the blueprint for those characters when you actually like
didn't think about it. They're right. You're right.
Which is
Shout out
crazy.
to whoever tweeted that. That's awesome.
I know, and it's just a fortunate thing. It's like I should have screenshot and saved it for this thing, but I'll probably save it and I will find it and then get back to you guys on the next podcast. But with that being said, thank you everyone for listening to the L7C podcast. Make sure you like, rate, comment, subscribe. We'll be back next month to talk about a question that I will figure out in the next couple of weeks. And then once August is done, we're in September, we're in October, and then My Hero's back. So with that being said, thank you everyone for listening to L7C podcast. Signing out. Thank you for listening to this episode of the L7C podcast. Be sure to like, rate, review, and subscribe to the channel. Follow us on all social media platforms, and we'll be talking to you guys soon. Take care.